second session, which talks about South India office realty changing demand for workspace and work life. And now let me introduce our speakers for this session. The session is moderated by Arpit Mehrotra, Managing Director, Office Services, South India Colliers International. Arpit has 16 years of extensive exposure of leading complex and large-scale real estate transactions and people management. He has advised many global and local investors, corporates, multinational occupiers across diverse real estate asset classes, including commercial offices, retail, logistics, warehousing and land, and right person to moderate this very panel where we are talking about workspaces. Our speakers in an alphabetical order, I will now introduce. Our first eminent speaker joining us is Mr. Amit Grover, Executive Director, Office Businesses, DLF. Amit is a seasoned commercial real estate professional with 24 years of experience in vital positions at Ansars, Cushman & Wakefield, Citibank CRE, and now with DLF. He's been there for more than 17 years and is driving the entire growth of DLF's office business. His expertise lies in the project's feasibility, design, technology, operations, and asset enhancement, sustainabilities, and amenities planning. So who better to talk about office real estate than Mr. Amit Grover. Our next panel member, I introduce Mr. Jaggi Marwa, CEO, Prestige Office Ventures. He is at Prestige responsible for leading the growth and development of the company's office business. He has over 27 years of cumulative work experience and has been actively involved in the acquisition, design and development, planning, execution, business development, leasing and sales of the group's portfolio. We all know Jaggi has been in with JLL India in senior leadership positions, and he has led the growth of various businesses like capital markets, hotels, retail, data centers, and has been advising top MNCs on their growth across all key markets of India. Our next panel member is Ms. Nirupa Shankar, Executive Director, Brigade Enterprises Limited. She has a rich and versatile experience and oversees the company's hospitality, office and retail ventures, human resources, public relations, and innovation functions. She forms part of the promoters group and has been with the group from 2009 onwards. Our next speaker for the panel is Mr. Praveen Vasudeva. He is the country head India Global Real Estate and Facilities SAP. Praveen Vasudeva oversees all aspects of SAP corporate real estate function in India, and his objective is to support business through the changing needs of work and workforce, appropriate workplace strategies. So Mr. Vasudeva would be presenting the occupiers' end of views on this panel. Our next panel member is Vinamra Srivastava, CEO, Business Parks Capital Land India. Vinamra oversees investments, development, operations, asset management, and strategic planning for Capital Land Group's business parks in India, and he leads the expansion and enhancement of the group's portfolio in the country. So it's a great addition to our panel, Mr. Vinamra Srivastava. Let me introduce another equally talented speaker of this session, Mr. Vinod Rohira, CEO, Mindspace Business Park REIT. Vinod began his career with K. Vaheja Corp over 2 decades ago, and his work philosophy has resulted in building brand Mindspace with the idea of establishing world-class business districts. Having led the development of Grade A commercial real estate across the country and the listing of Mindspace Business Park REIT on the Indian Stock Exchange, his current focus is now on driving the commercial business strategic operations with an emphasis on stakeholders management and business development. So thank you, Vinod, for joining us here today for this panel. Our next and final speaker that I introduce is Mr. Yash Gupta, Managing Partner, YGR. Mr. Gupta has global work experience across Asia, US, and Europe. And before finding YG Real Estate and Blue Sky Ventures, he established and led Hines as its country head, India, and Senior Managing Director. In addition to his participation on several company boards, Mr. Gupta is South Asia Chair, YPO Real Estate Network, and he's the member RE committees of FICCI and CII. Can we have all our speakers on the screen now? Thank you so much for being here with us for this very interesting topic of discussion. I hand it over to Arpit now to please take over the proceedings.
Thank you so much, Sapna, and it's a pleasure to be part of this virtual conclave. I would like to thank Reality Plus and every team member involved for having me here today. While the last session was very lot of points which I was able to make a note. Everyone wanted to understand what's going to happen in 2021. I think very interesting session, and the way queries came up, I think it shows that people are looking forward now for 2021. Equally, I would like to thank all our esteemed speakers who have joined. All these speakers are itself name and the brand for the industry. Today is the day and the opportunity for me to ask all the tough questions to all of them, which people ask me. I'm sure this knowledge session will bring a lot of information, which personally I would like to carry back. So thank you everyone for coming in and taking your esteemed time out for this day. So our topic today is South India office reality, changing demand for workspace and work life. While this office reality market has been there and it's been a lot to be talked about in 2020, but just to give a little, taking it back to 2019, what happened in 2019, the metro cities of South India have been a major contributor towards the overall office leasing activity in India. In 2019, around 58.6 million square feet of activity happened pan-India, out of which around 60% came down from South market, where Bangalore contributed around 27%, Hyderabad 23%, and Chennai 8% altogether. Then we saw 2020 this year. Q1 was very effective for everyone. Then when we saw COVID coming up, an accelerated work from home experiment was put in the picture and brought organization real estate decisions on hold. During H1 of this year, which is 2020, office leasing across the country witnessed a 36% decline on year-to-year basis. However, we see a gradual ease of restrictions. The southern cities of the country are leading the charge on the road to recovery. Both Bangalore and Hyderabad together accounted for approximately half of the total leasing activity this year till date. And this has been published in our Collier's report, which came up recently. The resilience of South India office market is evident from the interest showed by the large equity private firms, Blackstone and Brookfield, for investments into a rent-yielding assets, totaling up approximately $3.5 billion, which echoes the positive future outlook, which is steep 30% increase from last year, which was around 2.7 billion of the investments in 2019 in commercial real estate sector, while the total investment was around 6.4 billion. But always commercial reality took a lead on that. The new supply which is entering in this market was backed by a strong pre-commitments, and South India witnessed a renewed interest of large private equity players. While we may witness contraction of about 30% in overall leasing this activity this year, the YTD data indicates that given the presence of the grade A assets, upcoming infrastructure and availability of the best-in-class talent further strengthen the South India office market position for the years to come. That is where we have been all this year. So since every one of us is here in this group, and since we have Nirupa also here, my first question will go down to Nirupa. Nirupa, over the last 10 months, a lot has changed in how stakeholders are viewing offices. What are your views on offices being now perceived as the places for collaboration and not just workspaces?
Thanks for the question, Arpit. Thanks for having me on this panel as well. See, basically, of course, the last 10 months has given us a lot to reflect about. Everybody's talked about work from home. What is the future of office spaces? Is there a future for office spaces? All these various questions have been asked of us. But I think one thing that we've all realized is that, while, of course, work from home was a fabulous short-term stopgap solution, I don't think if you ask any of your employees, would they want to work from home 100% of the time? Any of them would say yes, right? Of course, companies are looking at various solutions, various hybrid solutions, because any company going through a calamity or a natural disaster like this one will probably think of how to, save some of their costs. And they will look at every line item on the expense side with a fine comb. So obviously they are looking at real estate as well in the same manner. But I think what large MNCs, and I think everybody here on this panel works with blue chip companies. If you're a large MNC, you're not going to just look at your office space as brick and mortar, right? You're going to look at it as a space where you can develop a culture for the organization, where you can actually create a campus that identifies with your identity as a company. And also, of course, a place for camaraderie and collaboration, right? Because you're spending so much of your time in office, you're not just coming there to work, come work, clock in, clock out, and go home, right? Everything. The reason why most people stay in an organization is partly because of the people that they work with, partly because of the camaraderie, how much they get along with somebody. There's so many other aspects to it. So our take is that, of course, people will think about how they can save their costs. Of course, people will think about hybrid solutions. Of course, occupiers will think of what works best for our staff. But you can't say, okay, office space is not here to stay, because it might be a percentage. I feel that, okay, occupiers might say, let's make a percentage of our space flexible. You might have rotation of work from home. And I'm sure Praveen will be the right person to answer all these questions. But we feel that while people are re-looking at their real estate strategies, we haven't seen a reduction in the inquiries, at least in the last 2-3 months. Obviously, during lockdown from April to about September, it was kind of slow. But then I think there's been a resurgence in the number of inquiries that we've had thus far.
Thank you. I think you rightly said, Praveen is the right person when it comes to occupier, and he can talk more about hybrid and the flexibility. That comes to my next question to Praveen. Praveen, how are occupiers building flexibility in their real estate portfolios? Will flexibility and hybrid solution will be the key?
Hey, thanks, Arpit. Thanks everybody for being on the panel. It's a pleasure to be here. By the way, Arpit, this is a real imbalance, man. I mean, you've got a lot of, it's difficult to have this conversation with a lot more people on one side, but, I'll try my best with this panel.
It shows the state of the things, Praveen. It shows so much supply and very less demand.
That's a little bit scary, right? Being the occupier here. But to your point, Arpit, I think corporate real estate organizations, the ones that I work for, right, within the function within SAP, are really recognizing the importance of having flexibility in their portfolio, right, and management of the portfolio. See, CRE's vision, or the corporate real estate organization's vision, has always been trying to be agile, for the employees as well as agile for the business, right, and trying to do the right thing from right sizing of the footprint and also aligning that to the clear business strategies and objectives along with the right location strategies. I think the point is there are various forces, right, that are shaping an organization, and there are different business cycles that are occurring, especially for IT industry, right? I mean, there's a lot of disruption occurring. Customer expectations are changing. Digitization is one. Then you have all the security element, the cloud elements that are playing, right? Startups disrupting in areas. Traditional competitive landscape is completely changing, right? And beyond all this, is the war for talent, right? And you've seen what's shaping up in the Silicon Valley, right, with Tesla and Oracle just moving away into Texas. It's not just because of the cost, but also more importantly because of the talent that is there in Texas. So it's a big talent migration as well that's happening. But it's a really, honestly, it's a VUCA world at this point of time. Pandemic is changed everything that we thought is going to go, right? So with this competition in mind, in terms of talent, I think there'll be a lot more distributed workforce, which will dramatically, alter the space demands, right? I mean, I was looking at some article which talked about 50% of the workforce, right, in the developed countries will look for alternative workplaces, and countries like us where we're still developing, I'm sure there's at least going to be a 25% to 30% where we'll see a lot of alternate workplace strategies that will emerge out, from companies, right? And virtual offices will play a conspicuous role, right? But physical spaces will still be predominant when you consider the total corporate real estate at this point of time. But to your point in specific, right, flexibility in real estate is the key to manage any upturns, downturns to the business, and more importantly, be agile and have the right sizing to ensure we can create the right value for the bottom line for the company. So yeah, flexibility is needed, and all organizations will look through this carefully, if not
Thank
already.
you. Thank you. So you rightly said distributed workforce, alternative workspace strategy. So my next question is to Jaggi. Jaggi, how are flexible workspaces coping in the current scenario? What do you feel will be their strategies over the next couple of years?
So, Arpit, thanks. Not too much of a flexi space specialist in this, but the little I know, all I can say is that when the business does come back and when people start committing on future spaces and realigning plans post January 15th, when people start looking at the positive side of COVID and looking COVID as bygone, I think the fastest to jump the space take up would be the flexi space, primarily because I think the capital will be distributed to such an extent that it will not be going for capex, and I think large organizations will find it extremely challenging to invest in what we still will call a VUCA world. So January will also be a VUCA world for some time. And I think things will only stabilize over the next couple of quarters. But having said that, I think managed offices, not flexi spaces, managed offices, serviced fully offices that give the client the experience of having their own office but not spending their own money, giving them the flexibility of short-term leases versus long-term capex and amortization models will definitely be a big winner in this entire workspace. But having said that, I think even the other co-working players will have to come to terms with their the way they remodel their businesses to ensure that clients get the flexibility, because I definitely see a big gap between the big companies, the tech giants, and the second level of companies, which will still deter from spending capex in the next couple of quarters.
Thank you so much. Again, you rightly said, Jaggi. In fact, my views are equally the same. Time to come, we will see what's going to happen much in the flexible workspaces, but managed offices will be always a lookout. My next question goes to Vinamra. In fact, this is in addition what Jaggi has been talking about flexibility and workspaces. What do you think? A demand for offices and buildings with better design and control systems to manage health and hygiene, touchless sustainability, etc., and the willingness of occupiers and the landlord to bear cost.
Thanks, Arpit. Just a quick check. Am I audible,
Yes,
Arpit? Just
yes.
check. Okay, great. So you're right, and I think the occupiers are getting very sophisticated, and rightly so. And COVID has only accelerated that. So I think very soon aspects of wellness, aspects of how technology is integrated into the real estate developers' portfolios, so as to achieve the end objectives of safety and health and being contactless, etc., is going to become more and more important. And to the stage where I think it will even become as one of the key defining criteria when occupiers choose where they want to go. The trouble is that will the occupiers be willing to pay extra for it? We don't know. Unlikely so, given where the market is heading, and I can see Praveen smiling as well. But the point is that, look, that's what happened with green buildings as well, right? It's no longer a novelty to have. It's an expectation, and nobody's going to pay you extra just because you have a platinum building. But everybody will require that, and so will be the case, I think, with the way health and wellness and sustainability and technology is integrated into the value proposition of developers have to offer. And those developers who can do that successfully on top of the regular criteria of price, location, etc., I think will really stand out. And when you combine that with what's happening on the REIT side, with REITs bringing in a lot more foreign investment and making the industry much more professionally run and managed, these kind of tie in very well together. So I think all in all, this development, while there is short-term pain on all of us, I think for the long-term sustainability of India as an attractive destination is fantastic. And it also puts then India at par with what occupiers expect from India in comparison to their other geographies. Why should an employee of SAP have a different experience whether he's in India or in other geography? So that trajectory, I think, will become more and more important.
Thank you. So, in fact, these are the things which are happening across, and time will come, we will see about it, whether an occupier will invest further on it or the landlord will invest on that. In addition to what Vinamra, you have been talking about wellness technology, Yash, I have a question for you. How are you seeing occupier using technology and automation to drive productivity and improve hygiene at workspace? Will technology become more encompassing factor even as we move closer to the end of the pandemic?
Thank you, Arpit. I mean, it's very difficult to answer this question with Nirupa sitting on the same panel, because she will correct me wherever I'm wrong and show how an amateur I am. But I will still attempt it, and thank you for both being inviting me as well as for being a part of such an august panel. I think the question really is why technology, not about what technology. There are several what technologies we can talk about, and the short answer to your question is yes. But the question is why. And the reason that I would say the why is there is a paradigm shift that has happened. We are all, we all talk about how much will office go down, how much will flexible working space be there, how much will it be there. But I'm really reminded of the Indian ethos, which is none of us really know the result, and all of us we can focus on is only the action. And my point is, I don't think anyone knows exactly how flex will be. Anyone knows what percentage it will be. But what we do know is two things. One, people will come to office because they want to, not because they have to. That's the first paradigm shift. The second paradigm shift is this paradigm shift is creating a dislocation on where people will work from, how much will they, how much of the workforce will come to the office, and what format will it take. Now, what is the result of that? The result of that is this dislocation will require the landlords to be more flexible, and if they have to be more flexible, they will have to use technology, whether it's for hygiene, whether it's for employee comfort, whether it is for wellness. I mean, whether it's for security or safety, all of the above is the answer. But you will need to be flexible because you don't have the same workforce coming every day and all the time. It will have to be managed. The question would be who will manage it, whether it be managed by a co-working operator, whether it be managed by the landlord himself, whether it be managed by completely by the Marriotts of the world. I think no one really knows. And it will have to be community because people, as Nirupa correctly said, the reason they want to come to the office is not because they can't work from home, but it's because they want the community, they want the collaboration, and they want the culture.
Rightly said. There is already paradigm shift, and there are many learnings which it's coming out from 2020. My next question goes to Amit, and I just wanted to add further what Yash has been talking about. Amit, my question is on wellness. While wellness has been a facet mainly driven by individual occupiers, are developers now offering wellness amenities to the larger number of clients and incorporating them in the entire projects? What is the impact of the capital and operating cost?
Yeah, thanks, thanks, Arpit, and pleasure connecting with the panel. I think, as Praveen said, we don't want to outnumber him. So whatever we are doing as developers are purely listening to what the occupiers want and trying to be as agile and flexible and adaptable, I think. So the more we keep on listening, the occupiers, our solutions will emerge. I think it's a no-brainer. As I'll take on from what Yash said. The in this whole pandemic world, the very reason of why come to office has been the core. And all occupiers have to have this answer for their employees, and the more deeper whys have to be emerged out of this whole thing. So definitely, the very reason of what physical space offers is the ability to connect with each other, the ability to collaborate. So the one is what happens within the office premises, and which is what the occupiers will kind of remodel their spaces. And we're hearing a lot about flexi spaces. We're hearing a lot of occupiers, planning to change their interiors and reconfigure the spaces. There's going to be a lot happening inside the spaces. What developers are obviously will do is an extension of the same mindset, which means you kind of energize your common areas, refresh your amenities, bring in wellness through more, activities inside the campuses. It could be more of those yogas or Zumba classes, or could be aerobics and all that stuff around, and a very high level of focus on the indoor air quality. So, I think that's going to be the key question once the employees starts coming back. At this stage, I think developers are not thinking about what will be the ROI, because I think this will become the must-do. I mean, these are some of the investments which all developers have to do. We are doing it, and this will become very must-do, that employees will. The only way this office business in the long run will be there, that there has to be a motivator why go to office, and it has to be far more exciting than just sitting at home. There has to be far more reasons. So the whole office ecosystem will give that platform to have friendship, to collaborate with employees, to build that bonding, have that trust, have that fun around. Can the families come to spend time there in offices? So I think it will just the work-life integration, solution which will emerge. And definitely, indoor air quality investments will be there. The whole touchless experience. There will be technology enhancement. There will be some, overall amenities upgradation. So basically, what you start delivering is what you call it as experience per square feet, and not just a kind of a square footage charge. And then maybe in the longer run, the offices will start getting valued on the basis of experience per square feet. That's how I'll summarize it.
Thank you. So ability to collaborate is the word. Vinod, I have a next question to you. Commercial office assets continue to be the most attractive asset class for investments, and the current scenario of working from home hasn't eroded the attractiveness. Institutional investors are still flocking to buy assets. In fact, competition has increased further. We are now genuinely expecting to see a developing REIT market as a listing are set to multiply from the current 2. In fact, during this pandemic, Mindspace REIT was listed on 12th of August this year. So what is your outlook to the sector for the next 3 to 5 years?
I think we cannot take our eyes off the fundamentals, and that's really driven the business for the last 2 to 3 decades, where you've seen paradigm shift of commercial real estate, and we're still learning and we're still growing. While we've faced ourselves with this 2020 scenario of the pandemic that has hit us, and the global markets have reacted the way they have, let's understand 3-4 different dimensions to this. Primarily, what has emerged is that India has delivered as a resilient support services base. Secondly, the dependencies on India have become far more sharper now because of the realization that technology, human capital that India has cannot be replaced by any other country. Thirdly, what's happened is, with the fast pace of digitization and disruption at the workplace taking place, you still are going to need far more aggressive support on the technology front. Fourthly, what's happening is that if you can move from anywhere in the world, for example, you were working in the CBDs of Manhattan or wherever else, and you suddenly were able to get your work done from any other minute location of America, you could probably get it done from India. Similarly, while you were going and flocking into a Bangalore or a Hyderabad or Pune or a Bombay or wherever else because you thought that's the place to go. Now you could pick people anywhere and you could change dynamics of the workspace going forward. Having said that, today there's one eye on cost, the other eye on sustainability, third eye on health and safety, and the fourth eye on deliverables. The minute in the next 12 to 18 months you start seeing growth, then you will want to know of numbers, and then you will go back to the traditional office space. While de-densification will drive demand in a different direction, de-densification geographically might play out. You might see some hybrid mechanism. Each company is going to take its own self out. What bottom line that I'm trying to tell you is commercial real estate has actually driven itself to show that you are resilient as an asset class, not just in India, across the world. You may see in the Far East that everyone's actually got back to office, whether it's China or Singapore or Hong Kong, offices are 80% occupied. You move out to the Americas, there are hybrid systems that are being introduced right now. Work from home was a strategy I've seen with a lot of American companies for the last decade. It's nothing new. And there are a lot of people I know in large companies in the US who've never gone to office more than once in a week, even before the pandemic hit us. So these are not new strategies that have come at the workplace. While they will evolve more, obviously, because even if you want to, you can't get 100% of your workspace till COVID is not gone away from our lives in some shape or form. You cannot densify in an 80 square foot footprint. You will never call your employees more than 25 or 30 or 40% to the workplace. So you will scream from the rooftop, work from home is the best thing to do because you don't have an option. The minute you start seeing growth and you cross the COVID curve, you will see grade A offices, definitions changing. Experience of the workspace, while it has been changing every 5 years, you will see a whole new layer of health and safety and other protocols that will emerge from an asset class perspective. And you will see a flight to quality. Grade A supply will diminish dramatically. New supply is not going to come in a hurry. There is no capital closure available. There is no speculative supply. You will see a vacuum of supply for the next 2 to 3 years. And when demand bounces back, you're going to see a challenge with no space available in grade A. Those who can take up the challenge of all that we've said on the panel, whether it's flexibility, interaction with tenants, upgrading assets, health and safety protocols, etc., will be winners. But fundamentally, the bottom line remains with the cheapest real estate in the country, in the world, technically, for technology spaces, and we have the best talent pool. So when you combine these two and you want to save cost and you want to run towards digitization and further enhance technology, you have no other option. So you will see growth come back. You saw that after the economic crisis in 2008 and 9. India brought in the SEZ policy, not really knowing that it is going to support the technology sector more than anything else. They thought India will bring manufacturing, but you built 1 million jobs in the SEZs alone, 1.7 million jobs in the SEZ space alone in 10 years. And these are direct jobs on technology. So we are far ahead of the curve thanks to all of that. And I don't see that going away anymore. The minute you add all of those up and you get institutional players coming in and adding more reach to the marketplace, you will get mature investors who are going to be far more attracted to this asset class for the dividend it gives you and the stable return portfolio it gives you. And you will see the dynamics change. We are a baby step into that direction. The US markets are $163 trillion worth of REITs. We are still a $2, $3, $4, $5 billion REIT market. So we are a long way to go. But if we do it right, I think India will be a very strong REIT market in 5 years.
Thank you so much, Vinod, for sharing your perspective. I echo your thoughts, but the bottom line, which I'm also able to understand, is that probably the speculative supply, which has been coming down from last 10 years, not sure how much will come up in the next few years. Nirupa, on the same line, I have a question to you. The last decade was primarily about consolidation of multiple small offices within a city into a large or a few large offices for cost efficiencies and work optimization. So developers were trying and providing larger floor plates and the larger office parks to occupiers. Now there are increasing discussion revolving around decentralization of offices, densification, operations through hub and spoke model. What are your views on that? And are occupiers asking you to provide them in the multiple locations across the city?
So we're seeing couple of different things. I think it's very company specific, depends on the nature of the company and the industry. See, one thing is like we've always had bigger floor plates, right? Because of the better efficiencies that you get with the larger floor plates. That kind of remains the same. By and large, we're seeing companies wanting to consolidate in one area or one campus to create one major identity. But depending on how many teams they have, whether their teams are dependent or interdependent on the other teams and what is the level of dependency. In some cases, they are having smaller, I would say, they're having smaller teams work out of different buildings. And those generally, I've seen those to be under managed office. So they could move to tier 2, tier 3 cities, or it could be in the same city, but for a smaller location. But when we've seen teams sort of move away from the main campus, then it's usually under the managed office principle. But apart from that, we haven't, from what we've seen and the inquiries that we are getting, we're generally seeing that people are wanting to consolidate, but they want to move to a lower cost location. So perhaps if they were paying a fairly high rent in an area or a micro market of high demand, they're now willing to sort of move to a micro market that is less that is less costly. And even if it entails putting in the capex, in some cases, obviously they want the developer or the owner to pay that capex amount for the furnishing. But apart from that, we are seeing companies wanting to move to locations that are more
Sure, I think very valid point on tier 2 and tier 3 cities, and who better to ask on this? Praveen, what's your thoughts on tier 2, tier 3 cities, and with OSP rules being eased by the government to introduce the work from anywhere initiative, how do you see demand being played out by the IT companies?
Yeah, I'll have both sides of the argument on this, right? I think while OSP is relaxed in terms of how organizations did their business, right? Especially the international service providers. The point also is, right, it gave a lot of flexibility with this. So if you look at some of, I was just speaking to a couple of my peers in the industry. An interesting thing came when I was chatting with 3-4 of them, right? And one was like, they were trying to distribute a lot of laptops because people had moved out of office during this pandemic, and they were trying to ensure that business continuity was there and all that. And people were coming because of technical difficulty and technical upgrades for their laptops and the other equipments. One interesting thing, actually, it was the same theme, right? They were reaching out almost to close to 80% of all states in India, right? A particular organization. And, there was a case which I was trying to interrelate to what I did something, right, in SAP was, we almost hit close to 90% of the states. We hit close to about all 6 metros, 19 cities, almost like 40 tier 2 towns and even smaller places, and literally every other union territory, which meant that, people have moved to their locations or home locations, and they were pretty productive in it. What this tells is 9 months is not a small time, or actually we're coming to a close to a year, right? This is not a small change. I mean, a change is something which is temporary, but 12 months, it has completely changed a business cycle. If you look at business cycles, right? I mean, 1 year, 1.5 years, especially in the technology life cycle, this is a long time. And in a long time, people have changed the way that they work. And this is 12 months. And I'm sure most of the big product companies and a lot of other companies are not going to come back until June, even September, some of them, right? That's like a complete cycle of technology, right? In this scenario, if people have been distributed and work which along with them is getting distributed, and they have been able to, productively provide solutions to our customers and, stakeholders, then, why can't people work in a distributed manner, or rather, I will use the word scattered manner, right? And then you look at the flip side, the other argument of this OSP, right? The rigidness of this policy didn't allow a lot more players, right, to come in and invest. So this could probably ease a lot more businesses to come and invest back into the system now, because it was very rigid in the sense of deposits, in where your license had to be, located, your static IPs. I know the struggle that our IT teams had to do, and there was always compliance around it and whatnot. So they were very watchful and careful about it. So now this has freed up a lot more investments to come in, right? While one side it's taken away people to work in a scattered manner, but on the flip side, I'm sure it will get in a lot more investments to come in to India, and you'll see a lot more companies coming and investing because it's made it easy, right? The smaller ones, when I mean the smaller ones, the hundreds, 200s, or even 2000s, who are struggling to come in and put their footprint here, because as we know, then the other state, there's great amount of talent here, right? And when they've not been able to harness talent, and because of this, now with the ease of this, I see a great opportunity for companies who have any presence here to come and start investing as well. So that's what this OSP can do, which I think is probably going to happen, right? So that's what I feel on how OSP license as a game changer for India or Indian IT industry.
Possibly with every pandemic, there is always an opportunity, and we will have to look down towards the bright side of an opportunity. On the same line, I have my question, and this question is for Vinod and Amit. On this, last many years, we have been talking about mixed-use developments, which are likely to be preferred going ahead, as it being felt that employees will no longer want to travel large distances like they did pre-pandemic. Do you think that this will now move to a next level? Vinod?
Yeah, so essentially, when you're looking at travel, see, we're all assuming that we will continue to have COVID in our lives in the aggressive shape and form that we do. If that has to continue in the way it is, then obviously, like Praveen mentioned, you won't see people back to the workspace till June, July, August, September. And if that happens, then whether you either work from home or create a hub and spoke where you go inside closer to large residential catchments, build suburban business districts, and provide for flexi spaces in those areas for your clients to choose for distributing their workforce to who want to come to work and still be in an organized format. So those things are already emerging. We're actually seeing that quite aggressively in Bombay. Because if you see the mainland and the island, in the mainland, technically, from a person who's worked and lived on the island feels that that's the boondocks, but actually that's really been where 10 million people out of the 20 million people in Bombay live. And it has the largest intellectual capital catchment for Bombay. It's a city in its own right. And now with the aggressive infrastructure merging the island with the mainland, you can get AAA grade quality real estate at 50 rupee rents, cheaper than anywhere in the country, within 3 or 4 kilometer radius of high density residential catchments, as cheap as any city outside of Bombay. You might think Bombay is the most expensive city to live in. When you come and start evaluating this, you come to know that it's far, far more reasonable than you ever imagined, whether it's housing costs or transport costs or infrastructure or power or utilities. And that's what companies are doing now. They're disintegrating their front offices, saying we divide our offices for support services, which go closer to the residential catchment, and we move with a smaller footprint to the CBDs. Because the true large CBDs are Bombay driven for the country, and you're seeing this dynamic change that's taking place already in the city of Bombay. So you will see that happen wherever you have large residential catchments and you have space where you can kind of distribute your workspace, you will see that happen.
Amit?
Sure. Yeah. So I mean, my views on this decentralization is one. It will vary city to city. So obviously, two cities in India, Bangalore and Mumbai, suffer from the larger commute time to work historically, and all these years. So therefore, whether it's a hub and spoke model or multiple offices, in the same city, can be somewhat a trend. I think post-pandemic or otherwise, where everyone has moved up the Maslow's hierarchy in some sense, so the work-life balance will become one of the important driver. So in cities where I believe where the travel time is within 30 to 40 minutes, it's okay to go to office and it's in a comfortable zone. But I think where the travel time is more like 1 hour to 1.5 hour could be exceeding in certain areas. I think the employees will demand either a substantial balance of work from home, or they would demand, a kind of a split offices in the same cities, one closer to the home. And that may drive some of those, I would say, a hub and spoke model. I'm not too sure about mixed use developments because, historically, the people come to city centers to have those more energy. I mean, we've seen the international trends also, whether it's the Hudson Yards and others, and likewise the Cyber City in Gurgaon. People love to see places. They're okay to come to office within 30, 35 minutes. You go for work and you have an evening attached to it. You're okay to drive back home 30, 35 minutes. As long as, from larger perspective, there's always those mass transport connectivity and et cetera, et cetera. And in a short run, you can't just reverse the whole cycle across cities. I mean, the cities last 10 years in India, it took a lot of effort for the governments to develop the mass transport system, which was designed keeping in view where the city centers are, which was designed keeping in view how the city centers are connecting to the residential areas. And I think it took us as a country, it took us many more years, and we were reasonably always behind schedule to get there. So I don't think everything can be upside down in certain areas, but definitely far more engaging workplaces, far more, I kind of give an example of something like a Rockefeller Center as excellent engaging spaces. I think we'll have more reflection of that, where people come in, families come in together, it's work, it's fun, friends come in together, and I think those kind of trends will continue. One thing, Praveen, I'll mention about this work from home, and you rightly said about it's already about a year or so. I was talking to one of the clients, and it was a very interesting comment someone made. They said one of the reasons why work from home is also successful, all the leaders were told not to come to office. Now all the leaders in all businesses live in metro cities, right? We know we've all built our careers. I keep saying the India story is the same Amitabh Bachchan story. Go to Mumbai, build your career. It doesn't matter if you're living in a small house, or it doesn't matter if you're struggling with the metro. You work hard to build that career. I think that will continue. Let the world open up. Let the leaders start coming back to office. And I can tell you, a lot of people who are sitting pretty in the tier 2 cities, they would be motivated to come back to offices. That's my view.
Interesting point. While Bangalore is known for all the good reason, technology, talent, traffic is something which people always talk about from Bangalore. But trust me, these days it's breeze to go from one part of the city to another part of the city. This brings to another interesting question, and this I have it for Jaggi. Jaggi, as an office market, Hyderabad has picked up tremendously in the last many years, while Bangalore continues to remain the number one office market in the country. Is this sustainable? Which other southern Indian cities look attractive?
So it was very interesting to see that, this for the last maybe 15 years or 20 years, we've been hearing about this tier 2, tier 3 cities in every conversation over. I think Vinod will know about it. Yash at least will know about it. Yash, that, tier 2, tier 3 stories, and Amit also knows for almost 15, 20
I remember
years.
the JLL presentation around it as well.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So the thing is, for a Hyderabad to grow from a 3 to 4 million market to 11 million market, it actually took a lot of, right things that the government invested in the city, be it infrastructure, be it, I would say for the better word, the FSI story, which is not so great today if you look at the sustainable factor that Vinod was talking about. Because now, from a developer standpoint, now Vinod talks about from a REIT standpoint. So his language is slightly changed. But I like that because sustainability is a very important part of every story. And Vinod, you guys have done tremendously well in terms of what the scale of, development in that city. But I think coming back to your point, Arpit, I think apart from these 3 cities, I really don't think, in fact, Chennai has always been I would say, a lagger between the 2 cities. Actually, it started as Chennai was the number 1 city in South India 25 years ago, where people actually started all the investments. It's only Bangalore took over it in the early 2000s and then never looked back. But Hyderabad, if you look at the last 15 years from a 2 to 3, 4 million square feet market, it is now giving Bangalore a run for the money only because of 2 or 3 things. One, the government's positive attitude of looking at infrastructure, which again, it looks good today, but 3 years down the line with all the FSI that has been, the throughput that they allow of about 4 lakh square feet per acre of land, I don't think that's sustainable in that market too. So that will definitely need a rethink. And I think they're already thinking, because if you look at Financial District, if you look at Kokapet, all the people have taken their positions. There's lots and lots of concrete in that area, which no matter what you do in terms of roads, it won't happen. So I think if you ask me very straight off the hook, if there's a fourth city, I think Kochi has always been a fourth city to all the 3 cities. And it'll be a distant fourth city for reasons best known to many of us. But having said that, there is a lot of workforce that now, thanks to this whole new model that you can work from wherever you can. And I think one of the reasons, I was actually talking to somebody, one of Nirupa's large tenants, and he was telling me that the reason that they can't have people come back to the offices is that they don't have PG accommodations anymore in Bangalore. So think about it. People who work in Cochin, who live in Cochin, work in Bangalore, live in Chennai, work in Bangalore, live in Hyderabad, work in Bangalore, are not coming back to Bangalore. I thought it was March, April, but Praveen says it's till September. So it's scary right now to actually go to Outer Ring Road. But on a lighter note, it only looks in Bangalore that the COVID is only in offices. COVID is not in malls. COVID is not in the traffic. COVID is not in the bars. COVID is not in the shopping centers. COVID is not in the hospitals. COVID is only in office and only the IT parks. So it's a very different way of looking at how things are. But I think our workforce in India, especially, I would say to a large extent, is also pampered and spoiled. And I think sooner than later, you will see some of the big names. I would say they'll crack the whip in terms of getting people back in office. And I think most of the developers are pushing for this. Many of us are working from office from the day they opened office. And I think for a sustainable live economy and a growing 1.3 billion people, you can't keep people at home and expect them to work and expect a V-shaped, economy bounce back. It has to be with people's consumptions, cars. People have to, spend the money out, and more importantly, consumption practice has to happen. Yes, technology is a very important piece, and thanks to companies like Praveen's company and a lot of the technology companies, dependence of people to coming to physical spaces has reduced. But imagine if you join a new company and you're asked to sit in your home for 6 months. What kind of collaboration will you do with people? What kind of business collaboration will happen? So I think, Vinod was also rightly saying that, it's a matter of time that people will have to come back, and it's sooner than later. And I think coming back to your point, I think apart from the 3 cities, maybe Cochin will come to a 2 million or 3 million square feet market size. The only other city that I would say which will, in the future, if the way Bangalore-Mysore connectivity is happening, and I think with the road infrastructure that the government is actually working on, if they can make Bangalore-Mysore drive time under 1 hour, 15 minutes is what they're planning, then I don't know why people work in Whitefield. They'll go to Mysore and work, and they live in Mysore and work, because to go to Whitefield from North Bangalore is 1.5 hours in any case. So I think, but having said that, nothing changes the big position that Bangalore and Hyderabad jointly have created for South India. Cities like Bangalore, Mysore, Hubli are still a distant dream away. But Cochin, of course, will always be in the shadow of a Chennai. If a Chennai does about 4 million, Cochin will easily do about 1.5, 2 million in terms of office market. So if you take the overall office market, I would still say the South India dominance will continue only because of quality real estate, quality of talent, and the speed in which people can hire that talent. Not forgetting also that social infrastructure is in the right direction. I was reading an article which says Bombay has clocked the highest amount of residential sales in the last couple of couple of months during the pandemic, but Bangalore is not too far behind in that too. Even Chennai has done reasonably well. So I think overall, if you look at it, the southern cities, Bangalore, Hyderabad, Chennai will constitute about 50 to 60% of office real estate in the market, in the overall consumption. That will continue. We as developers will always be much more buoyant and much more positive, because that's our business. We are always opportunistic, and for us, risk-taking appetite. So we'll continue to grow. On the supply side, quickly, just to before I finish, on the supply side, yes, there'll be much better supply coming in the market thanks to all the REIT and the institutionalization of office real estate. But one thing which is going to paralyze immediate office supply in the market is the liquidity crisis, which will continue.
Correct.
So that's
Correct.
Arpit, before we take audience question answers, if you would like to just summarize what all our panelists, what's the summary of our entire discussion today?
No, in fact, very interesting points and very engaging. I did not realize that we are coming closer towards the end of the tenure, but important point is what we have been talking about this year has been challenging year altogether, and there are many learnings which are coming this year. Time will tell the amount of learnings which we have been talking about with industry leaders sitting here in this forum. I think way ahead is going to be much stronger here. While South India always keeps on dominating when it comes to office occupier market, which essentially talks about 60% of the market in the country. But other than Hyderabad, if any other market needs to be considered, Hyderabad and Chennai, probably Kochi, Mangalore, Hubli are the markets which are a little distant away. But if we have a proper infrastructure plan, like we did it in Hyderabad, which was ahead of the time, I think that is where the things will improve further.
Okay, great. So I think Vinamra, our audience didn't hear much from you. We have two questions which are for Vinamra here. One of the questions they say with remote working and gig-based workforce, the shift seen in the ways of project will be funded, managed, and delivered. Vinamra, your views on that?
Well, I think it was partly touched upon in the other discussions. A direct beneficiary is expected to be flexible workplace, as it was mentioned earlier as well, for the natural benefits of being able to offer smaller site spaces distributed across the cities. Would it mean that the big scale developments will also get scattered? I'm not too sure about that. While in theory, that has been the hypothesis so far, at least we are not seeing on the ground where occupiers are wanting to be taking up 2 to 3 big spaces across the city. Maybe it will happen after a year or so, but I don't think we are seeing any of that so far. But clearly, in terms of flexible workspaces, I think they will be a natural beneficiary. So would it drastically change the way parks and developments are being funded? I don't think so. Will it change the way they are designed? Yes, and we talked about that on what that means in terms of design. But will it drastically alter the way footprints of office buildings are scattered within a city? I think it's too early to come to a conclusion in that. And we must also kind of remember that unlike the West or the Southeast Asia or Eastern Asia, entertainment options in India for city dwellers are limited. And going out of their immediate vicinity of residences is a big attraction for people on weekends, etc. To have entertainment, and that is very different from the West, where the options are much more. So even the concept that you would want to live, work, and play within a 2-3 kilometer radius, I think may work for Singapore much more. But for a country like India, may not always be successful. So I don't think it will alter fundamentally the way developments are invested, but the way they are designed, definitely yes.
Okay, great. Arpit has a question for you.
Great. Vinamra, in fact, thanks for sharing your perspective on that. I just wanted to understand, how can the industry and the developer fraternity build resilience into the industry from a similar disruptions in future? Are you expecting to see the emergence of the new product offering or the operating models in the future? And what is the nature of the demand change you are expecting?
As I mentioned, I don't foresee a big shift in the operating model as far as the developers are concerned. What I do foresee is the way the parks are going to be designed, and that will take into account health and safety as the most important criteria amongst the others, including community building. So that's where I think a big shift will happen, and the operating model may get more focused on developers making sure that they are able to offer flexibility. So if today an occupier wanted 100 square feet of core space, tomorrow he may want a 70 of core, and 30 of different nature, a managed or flex, etc. Um, but one thing to also keep in mind is that, and this is the feedback I get from a lot of my customers when I talk to them about how do they intend to change designs for their offices in a post-COVID era. And the answers are quite surprising because that's not what we heard, let's say, in April or May this year when it was at its peak. And a lot of occupiers are telling us that they don't foresee any significant change in the way they will design their own spaces. And what they're saying is that because there will be a natural element of flexibility built in the way they will embrace sort of work from home in the long term, that will induce a natural social distancing within the office without the need to retool the spaces. So if they had 100 people coming in, now they'll probably have 80 coming in all the time, maybe 15 coming in some times of the day, etc., etc. And that means there will be social distancing already implemented by default in the office space without them trying to build their desks apart. So I think the way culturally people will work, and a lot of occupiers are still framing those strategy, and I think it will be a bit premature to draw any conclusions on that yet. Will take care of a lot of these aspects. So what is important for the developers, I would say, is to be absolutely flexible in the way they structure their leases and the way they meet the demand, and be ready to adapt. And I think that's what the pandemic has taught all of us anyways. So.
And also, I think also all of us will read the force majeure clauses better.
Okay, so I have a last question, and this goes to everyone. And since we are running out of the time, and this is a quick last one, I need all your help in that. What future trends in office space, real estate can we expect? In case of work from home sustains for longer period, do you see for occupier reducing the footprint as a cost optimization measure in the future? I will start with this, Praveen, and then we can go with everyone's perspective on this. Quick one, please.
Yeah, I think a lot of organizations will look at right sizing based on how work gets distributed and how the architecture of the work gets changed. Right, that's one. Offices will be more cultural centers, hubs, emotional connect centers. While still there'll be some work which we call as the core work, which will get done from the office, but the context will still get scattered. But more so, I think the new trend that I see, this is just my perspective, will be where offices will be cultural hubs, emotional connect hubs, transportation hubs, and more like clubhouses where people come in and get themselves acquainted with I mean, people are people, right? They miss people, so it'll be a connection center, to put it simple, right? And that will be a lot more focus. Going back to what Vinandra said, people are not going to talk office as an office, but more as a connection hub, which I think will change the redesigning of offices going forward.
Thank you. Yash, your perspective on this?
Three words or three sentences. Service emphasis, not asset emphasis. Members, not employees or tenants. And engagement, not desks.
Super. Amit?
Yeah, hi. So I think a new phase of demand will come. That's what we're hearing from our customers. So the conventional BPO centers, even if they're left with some of them, will contract a bit. But at the same time, with the world and India's, being able to access the world, the digitization work and AI work where the companies will increase. So we expect the new demand coming in from a new set of companies who would look for new age offices, and they will do a new style of interiors in the vision of, as Praveen said, as cultural hubs and connecting hubs.
Nirupa, please.
My thought is a lot of focus will be on sustainability, things like clean air as a service. Who knew people could charge 1 rupee per square foot for clean air, but that is going to happen. A lot of things like energy management, water management, and I think there'll be a lot more professionalism and organization and facility management, which will include a lot of data analytics, data in terms of how often a certain seat is used, how often a certain meeting room is used, for how long. That kind of granularity in terms of how efficiently a space can be utilized, I think is one of the big trends that we will see.
Jaggi?
I think if one word, it comes to my mind as a top of the mind word recall, would be human experience. I think human experience will decide how an office is designed, built, operated, managed, and occupied.
Vinamra?
Yeah, in addition to what everyone said, I think ESG is going to be the central theme as far as developers are concerned, and it will no longer be just nice to have marketing slogan, but how do you integrate that in the DNA of how a developer builds and operate will really be a key differentiator.
Vinod?
I think bottom line is everybody, once they come back to work, all of these aspects that have been put on the table really will keep chopping and changing. The only thing that's going to remain constant is change. So while if we discuss this with you 6 months later, we'll have some different ideas to give you. So really, we're still navigating fog. Let's land on the tarmac, and then we'll know what we need to do. Another 2 quarters, we're still going to be in that. After that, we'll have a lot of ideas for you. Because while clients obviously will tell you they don't want to de-densify, obviously they don't want to do new capex, so they'll keep people at home. The minute they take up a new office, all these changes will come. So just watch for it.
Sapna, what do you?
Yeah, Vinamra, your views quickly.
I think he gave it.
Yeah, I think I shared my views. Focus on ESG.
Okay, great. I think from a common man's leaving around the technical part of it, I think the biggest shift will be employees will be very happy. We'll see employees happy to come back to work and going to office, unlike earlier. So thank you so much. I think Arpit, you brought all the views, from our speakers, from the occupiers, from the developers, as well as from the, the office segment. Thank you so much for being here with us. Amit, thank you for being part of this session. Vinamra, thank you for being here with us today. Yash, sharing your views as finance aspect to it. Jaggi, for your expert views. Vinod, again, Mindspace is in news every day. So thanks for sharing your views. Nirupa, thanks for being part of this session, giving us the local flavor of what Bangalore is doing in terms of workspace. And Praveen, thank you so much for adding that occupiers and you were the only one in the session, so you did good, with all the developers around you. So thanks, Arpit. Thank you, everyone. Thanks once again.